The United States recently celebrated 250 years of independence, but European history in North America goes back much further. If you look up the oldest city in the US, you'll find St. Augustine, Florida, founded in 1565. That's over 460 years ago, and more than 2 centuries before the Declaration of Independence. In this episode, I'll show you St. Augustine, the oldest continuously inhabited European settlement in the continental United States. But before we get into it, big thanks to Kalshi for sponsoring today's video. Kalshi recently became the first FTC-regulated US exchange to offer perpetual futures. And that's a pretty big deal, because regulation means legal protections and federal oversight. With perpetuals, you don't buy the asset itself. Instead, you trade the direction of its price. If you think the price will go up, you go long. If you think it will go down, you go short. You can make or lose money in either direction. Unlike traditional futures, perpetuals don't expire, so you can close your position whenever you want. You can also use leverage, which can amplify both your gains and your losses. Liquidation risk is real, so make sure you understand the risks before trading. Use my link in the description to sign up for Kalshi. That's kalshi.com/p/snake. Trade $25 for the chance to earn up to $500. Now let's head to St. Augustine, a small city in northeast Florida with a population of just over 16,000 people. I got into St. Augustine around noon, and before exploring the city, I stopped at a local spot called Bar Citra to grab some coffee. And of course, I paid in Bitcoin. Can I have coffee to go? A small hot Americano?
Nothing in it?
No, just black. And you guys accept Bitcoin, right?
We do.
Thank you. I got my coffee and headed into St. Augustine's historic downtown. The city is best known for its Spanish history, but this part of downtown looks very different. In the late 1800s, a wealthy businessman named Henry Flagler came to Florida and helped transform the state's east coast with railroads and luxury hotels. 2 of his most impressive hotels were built right here, just steps apart. Let's start with the Lightner Museum. This is the Lightner Museum. It opened in 1888 as the Hotel Alcazar, one of Henry Flagler's luxury hotels. And this hotel had something very unusual for the time, a huge indoor swimming pool inside a 4-story entertainment complex. It also had a ballroom and a bowling alley. In 1925, the pool even hosted Olympic swimming tryouts. So this wasn't just a place to sleep. It was basically a giant playground for wealthy tourists escaping the northern winters. But when the Great Depression hit, the hotel closed and sat empty for years. Then a Chicago publisher and collector named Otto Lightner bought the building and turned it into a museum for his enormous collection, which included fine art, furniture, and all kinds of unusual objects. One of the most beautiful parts of the museum is the courtyard garden. Surrounded by arches, palm trees, tropical plants, and a fountain, it feels like a quiet escape in the middle of downtown. Just a few steps away is Casa Monica, another grand hotel from the same era. It struggled to attract guests, and Henry Flagler bought it less than a year after it opened. He later connected it to the Hotel Alcazar with a bridge, making both buildings part of his growing hotel empire. Decades later, Casa Monica even became the country courthouse, before eventually being restored as a hotel. And with this vintage car parked out front, the whole scene looks like it came from another era. But the most impressive building on this corner is right across the street. Today, it's Flagler College. And this was another luxury hotel built by Henry Flagler. Like the Hotel Alcazar, it opened in 1888, but this one was called the Hotel Ponce de Leon. The hotel was incredibly advanced for its time. It had running water and around 4,000 electric lights, making it one of the first major electrified buildings in the country. Another cool fact is that Louis Comfort Tiffany himself helped design the interior, including the stained glass and mosaic. And this building has had several different lives. It started as a luxury hotel, became a Coast Guard training base during World War II, and today it's home to Flagler College. Students still eat in the original grand dining hall, surrounded by Tiffany stained glass windows and massive painted murals. So a building once designed for some of America's wealthiest tourists is now part of everyday college life. After exploring downtown, I was ready to grab some food. I found a local seafood spot called Catch 27, just a few blocks away. Catch 27 focuses on fresh local seafood, and the name is actually a nod to Florida being the 27th state. The place itself is pretty small, but it was completely packed, always a good sign. The next morning, I started at Castillo de San Marcos. Castillo de San Marcos is the oldest masonry fort in the continental United States. The Spanish started building it in 1672 and it took 23 years to finish. The walls are made from coquina, a local stone formed from cemented seashells. And that turned out to be perfect for a fort. Instead of shattering under cannon fire, the softer stone absorbed the impact. The fort survived multiple attacks and was never captured in battle. And the design was just as clever as the material. The four-pointed corners gave soldiers a clear view in every direction, leaving attackers with almost nowhere to hide. The fort sits right on Matanzas Bay, so soldiers could see enemy ships approaching the city. During attacks, people from St. Augustine took shelter inside the fort, while their livestock stayed in the dry mode. During one siege, around 1,500 people spent 51 days inside, along with nearly 200 cows protected in the moat. And this is called the hot-shot furnace. Soldiers heated iron cannonballs until they were red hot, then fired them at wooden ships hoping to set them on fire. From Castillo de San Marcos, I walked across the street to the old city gate. These two coquina pillars once marked the only entrance through the defensive wall on the north side of town. And just beyond them begins St. George Street. And this is the heart of historic St. Augustine. St. George Street dates back to the 1700s and runs from the old city gate all the way to Plaza de la Constitution. Today, St. George Street is known for its art scene, with small galleries, shops and cafes lining the street. And because it's pedestrian only, you won't see any cars or even bicycles here. One of the first buildings you'll see is the oldest wooden schoolhouse. It dates back to the early 1700s and is known as the oldest wooden schoolhouse in the country. And that huge chain wrapped around the building isn't decoration. It was added to help keep the schoolhouse in place during hurricanes. Farther down is the Colonial Quarter, where the flags overhead represent the different powers that controlled St. Augustine over the centuries. Spain actually ruled the city twice, with the British period in between before Florida became part of the United States. And at the end of the street is Plaza de la Constitution. Plaza de la Constitution is surrounded by some of the city's most important buildings, including the Cathedral Basilica. This is the Cathedral Basilica of St. Augustine, the oldest Catholic parish in the United States. The city and this church were named after St. Augustine. But who was he, and why was the city named after him? He wasn't a Spanish explorer, and he never came anywhere near Florida. Augustine of Hippo was a Christian bishop and philosopher who lived in North Africa more than 1,000 years before this city was founded. He became one of the most influential thinkers in Christian history and is best known for his book Confessions, where he wrote openly about his troubled younger years and his journey toward faith. When Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez reached the coast of Florida in 1565, it was August 28th, the feast day of St. Augustine. So when he established the settlement, he named it St. Augustine in the saint's honor. The parish began shortly after the Spanish settlers arrived and celebrated Mass here. Inside, one of the first things you notice is the bright red ceiling and the stained glass windows, which make the interior much more colorful than you might expect from the outside. After leaving the Basilica, I crossed Plaza de la Constitución to my next stop, Aviles Street. Aviles Street is considered the oldest street in the United States. It dates back to the 1500s. It was originally known as Hospital Street because a Spanish military hospital once stood here. The street was later named after Aviles, Spain, the hometown of Pedro Menendez, who founded St. Augustine. And in the 1930s, it became the city's first official arts district. After exploring Aviles Street, I walked back to the car and headed toward the coast. On the way, I stopped at Steak and Shake, and of course, ordered the Bitcoin meal. Hi, can I have a Bitcoin burger and a Bitcoin shake?
Okay, Bitcoin meal.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
And your drink.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
On my way to St. Augustine Beach, I passed the St. Augustine Lighthouse, one of the city's most recognizable landmarks. For more than 150 years, its light has guided ships along Florida's coast, and its original Fresnel lens is still in use today. From there, I continued to St. Augustine Beach on Anastasia Island. There is something magical about the Atlantic. St. Augustine may be the oldest city in the country, but standing here puts all that history into perspective. After the beach, I made one final stop before heading home, Washington Oaks Garden State Park, about 20 minutes away. By the time I got there, it had started raining. I almost skipped it, but I decided to explore the park anyway, and I'm glad I did. The huge oak trees formed a natural roof over the paths, blocking most of the rain. Walking beneath them in the rain felt almost magical. And that was the end of my trip to St. Augustine, a Florida gem with a long history and a lot of natural beauty.